Hello there everyone. Hope you're having a good day. This is the second part of the story. It's called The Unkind Brothers. Now one day Jacob sent the 10 elder brothers to the beautiful valley of Shechem, where there was much green grass for the flocks and the herds. They set off with their sheep and cattle, their dogs helping them to lead the flocks. When they came to the valley, which was a good many miles away, they pitched their tents and prepared to stay there for some time. Jacob had no word from the brothers, and he wondered if they were safe and well. So he called Joseph to him and spoke to the handsome 17-year-old boy. Joseph, your brothers are feeding the flocks in Shechem. I have a mind to send you to them. Joseph was glad. He felt a man to be sent on such a long journey by himself. Here I am, he said joyfully. Send me. You shall go and see whether all is well with your brothers and with the flocks, said Jacob. Find them and speak with them and bring me word. Joseph took a camel to ride, and in the basket slung at each side were presents of food for his 10 elder brothers. He took them wine to drink, and oil, and dried raisins, and he was happy and excited as he set off alone to ride the many miles to Shechem. He rode for some time, but when he came to Shechem Valley, there was no sign of tents or flocks. The boy was surprised and wandered about for a good time, trying to find his brothers. A stranger met him and told him where they were. Joseph set off on his camel once more, glad to hear that his brothers were well and only had moved their flocks because they had heard a better pasture for them. He hastened on his way, thinking joyfully how pleased his brothers would be to see him, how glad they would be to have his presence, and how surprised he had been able to find his way to them all alone. The 10 brothers were sitting with their flocks. Most of them were very much older than Joseph, and were strong, bearded men with wives and children of their own. They suddenly saw the lone camel coming towards them, and sat up to see who the rider was. They saw it was Joseph in his coat of many colors, and they sat and looked at the coming rider with hate and jealousy in their hearts. They had no welcome for him. Behold, the dreamer comes, said one to another mockingly. Then, when they saw that he was quite alone, a wicked plan came to their minds. Let us kill him, they said. We will throw him into the pit and say that some wild beast has eaten him. We will see what becomes of his wonderful dreams then. Reuben, the eldest brother, heard what they were saying. He was uneasy, for he did not hate Joseph as the others did. He knew also that Jacob, his father, loved Joseph with all his heart, and would be bitterly grieved if the boy died. No, no, said Reuben, we must shed no blood. Is he not our brother? Cast him into the pit if you will, but do not kill him. Reuben meant to go to the pit at night and take Joseph out and send him back unhurt to his father. But he did not tell the other brothers this, for he thought that if he did, they would surely kill Joseph. So whilst Joseph rode eagerly towards them on his camel, the brothers argued whether or not they should kill him. At last they decided they would not, but they would cast him into the pit, and he could die of hunger and thirst. Joseph drew near on his camel. He waved to his brothers, thinking that they would come to greet him. But they did not. Instead, they looked at him with hatred and scorn. He left off his camel, and soon as it knelt down and ran to greet his brothers, crying out that he had brought presents for them. But they would not kiss him or welcome him. Reuben, who might have been kind, was no longer there, for he had to leave the brothers to see to the flocks. So Joseph faced 9 stern-faced men as he ran up. He took hold of him roughly. They took hold of him roughly. They stripped him of his coat of many colors. They bound him hand and foot and threw him into the pit, rolling a big stone over the mouth. Excuse me. Then they went to find the presents the boy had brought, and soon they were sitting down, eating the raisins and figs and drinking the wine. Joseph was astonished and horrified. He knew that his brothers disliked him, but he had never thought they would treat him in such a cruel way. He lay in the pit, listening to them talking and laughing. He was bruised and unhappy, and he was afraid of what might happen to him. Were his brothers going to kill him? Where was Reuben? Surely he would save him. Now, as the 9 brothers sat eating, they saw in the distance a company of desert traders on their camels. The shepherds often saw these men and talked to them as they passed. They were fierce men, trading over the desert, traveling great distances on their camels. They took spicery and balm and myrrh, sweet-smelling and rare, down the desert track to Egypt, and brought back with them cotton and silk. Sometimes, too, they bought and sold children as slaves. Often, they took small black boys and girls away from their fathers and mothers and sold them to Egyptian masters and mistresses. As soon as the 9 brothers saw these desert traders on their camels, an idea came to them. It was the brother called Judah who spoke their thoughts out aloud. "What do we gain if we kill our brother Joseph?" he said. "Even if we leave him there in the pit to die, we shall be guilty of his death, and as if we had killed him with our hands. But if we sell him as a slave to the traders, we shall not only get rid of him, but we shall make a little money for ourselves also." Not one of the 9 brothers said no to this horrible plan. They hailed the traders who came up to them on their camels. "We have a young boy here whom we will sell to you as a slave," said Judah. "Let us see him," said the fierce traders. Joseph was dragged out of the pit and unbound. He stood trembling there in the evening light, dazed and miserable, looking around in vain for Reuben. He heard his brothers bargaining for the money with the traders, and he suddenly knew that they were selling him as a slave. They did not listen to his cries and entreaties. They gave him to the traders for 20 pieces of silver. They stood and divided the money amongst themselves as the rough desert traders tied the boy's wrists to a camel saddle and set off down the track with him. Stumbling over the desert, pulled along by the camel, Joseph left his brothers behind. He turned to see the last of them, hoping that perhaps one of them might save him. He begged the dark-faced traders to take him back, but they paid no heed to his cries. They were used to buying and selling children, and to them he was simply a handsome young slave who would bring them much money. He was a Hebrew, and not a black-faced Negro, so he would fetch more money. Now that night, Reuben went back to the camp. He crept to the pit to take out his young brother and send him back to his father. But the pit was empty. Reuben thought that his brothers had killed him. He was filled with horror and dismay. He tore his clothes in despair and went to his brothers. "The boy is gone," he said, "and now what shall I do?" The brothers didn't tell Reuben what had happened. They took the coat of many colors and dipped it into the blood of a kid belonging to some goats they had. The blood stained the gay coat so that it seemed as if the wearer must have fallen into danger and been killed. The next day, the brothers took their flocks and went homewards to where their father lived. They came before him, and he looked eagerly to see if Joseph was with them, but he was not. "See what we have found," said his brothers. "It is Joseph's coat." Jacob looked at the blood-stained coat in sorrow and despair. He knew that it was the coat that he himself had given to Joseph. "That is my son's coat," he said, weeping. "An evil beast has eaten him." Without doubt, Joseph had been torn to pieces. Now that's the second part of the story. Tomorrow I'll read to you the third part, the slave boy Joseph. So join me again. Bye bye.